Hello and welcome back to video 2 in your 4-part video series. Are you ready to start? Did you watch all of the first video? Have you abolished the biggest lie that there is? Now, if you haven't, I need you to go back and watch that video because I think the mental mindset we often skip over, but it's actually really important for you to really fully understand that your story matters now more than ever. Okay, so why are we here? Why are you even watching this series? You're watching this series because you think that it is important to publish a book. And I think it's important for you to publish a book. So we are in this together, you and I, finding a way for you to get your book published. Okay, so what is something that you have to do? So one of the biggest fears I hear from people, and you probably fear this as well, is putting a book out in the world that's like really bad, like really bad. You know, we have all read those books and you're like, how did this get published? Or why did this person not go through a couple editors again before putting this book out in the world? We all know those bad books and they're good. They have their purpose. But what we are hoping to do here is create something that you can share with people without shame, something you're excited to put out in the world, something that's going to make a difference for others, and something that you can share over and over and over again for years to come. Okay, so how do you get there? How do you make sure that your book is even ready to publish? Well, that is a 3-step process that I'm going to talk about in this video. The first step is the step that I think a lot of people often skip over, the first and the last step. So this first step is called content editing. So what is content editing? What does that mean, content editing? Think big picture. Think like that big overall earth view. Your content editing helps you make sure that your story makes sense, that the goal of your story is actually done. So for my book, Body Love, 10 Steps to Profoundly Loving Your Body, my goal was to make sure that people left the book loving their bodies and understanding the way in which society teaches us to hate this thing that we live in and we disassociate from it, but it really is us. And it is amazing what it does for us. That was my goal. So a content editor reads through that and makes sure that all the parts of the book come together to create that goal of feeling amazing in your body. For my novels, the goal is to tell a story that people can get escape into. For my novel, Because Fat Girl, that they could, the goal was that they could feel like they could get their movies made, that they could follow this heroine in her slightly unrealistic, but also super amazing and fantastical escapism into the world of movie making. And when a content editor reads that book, they need to make sure that my audience gets to go on that journey. So what is the purpose of your book? Content editors help make sure that there's a proper beginning, a middle, and an end. They make sure that your plot makes sense for fiction. They make sure that the flow and the stories and the ideas that you're putting out there make sense for nonfiction. So that's content editing. It's like this overall, does the content make sense? Does it flow well? Does one chapter go well into the other? Those kinds of things. That's content editing. After content editing is line editing. So line editing is literally going line by line by line in your book and making sure that each line flows well. So does this sentence have a lot of run-on words? Is it like a whole page long and it needs to be cut in half? Is it a whole page long on purpose, or is it a whole page long because you forgot about how to use periods? It makes sure that your characters, so this one character over here is not using a totally different tone and language than you're using over here. It makes sure that each line of your nonfiction book feels like it is in line with what you're trying to do. So they take that overall content edit, the overall goals, and they make sure that line by line you're good to go. They make sure that your book has an overall feel from this person to that person, making sure that your character hasn't changed accents or you didn't go from first person to the third person. It makes sure that each line is really the best it can be to the overall and benefiting to the overall idea of your book. So that's line editing. So you had content editing, overall big picture. Line editing is line by line. Now copy editing are for those people out there who love those little details. You all know that person who's like editing the grammar of people on Facebook. We all know that person. That is a copy editor. Copy editing is you go every single line by line, making sure that your period's in the right place, that you're using than and then properly, there, and there, that your grammar is right, that everything has that overall final polished look that a printed book often does, that we all associate with, style guides and books that have been through the publishing process. Now you might think, okay, I'm just gonna like do that all myself, or I'm just gonna like hire one person to do it all. It's not an all or nothing process. It is actually a step by step process that you need to take individually, preferably with a different person or at least a few months in between. And why does that matter? That matters because if you try to do it all at once, you'll miss a step. You can't skip a step. You need to think overall before you can go to line, before you can go to details. It's kind of like a funnel down into like the details: big picture, medium picture, small picture. It also matters that you have some perspective. So I don't think, especially when it comes to line editing, but also copy editing and content editing, that you should be the person who's editing your book. It's so important to find somebody else. So how do you find somebody else? How do you find editors? Well, you can buy them, you can pay them, you can buy them, you don't purchase them, you can pay them, and then you have somebody who is a professional doing it for you. Now, a simple Google search can help you find people, but I love to join groups like my Writer Squad or my Path to Publishing program, because those groups help you find people who've actually worked on other people's work. So you're not just Googling some random person who says that they know what they're talking about. You actually find somebody who's proven they know what they talk about. If you cannot afford a professional editor, a great way to find editing is joining those groups. Again, that's my Writer Squad group on Facebook, or my Path to Publishing course has a group that works with it as well. Finding people within that group and exchanging. So I do content editing exchanges for my friends all the time. I read their book, they read my book, we tell them an overall idea. Beta reading is also a term for that. Line editing, I don't personally do because I don't trust myself to do line or copy editing. I've been in this business for 20 years. I worked professionally as an editor, and I still don't trust myself. That is how important those are, to find somebody whose eyes are trained that way. So if you can't afford somebody, find that friend that's correcting your grammar on like Facebook, or that coworker who's always like sending you back an email with all those changes. Find those people in your life that notice those little things and love those little things, and ask them if you can clean their house for them, or send them a gift card to their favorite restaurant, or something to help and pay them to do this service for you, or exchange something with them if you can't afford to pay. But whatever you do, make sure that you go through that 3-part editing process, because that is one of the most important ways to make sure, if not, I would say the most important way to make sure that you put something out in the world that you're proud of, that you want to share with other people, and that you're happy to hold in your hands and hand off to somebody else. Okay, so that is this day's lesson. Now, what do? You need to go and click the next lesson and head on over to find out what is next, because trust me, you don't want to miss this. So click on the next one, head to your next video, and I will see you then.